time I say the word enough?
Never.
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
There's two words that come to mind: yoga.
Yoga pants. Yeah, because I feel like enough.
Get me started.
Well, it's a thing at our school. All the moms are yoga pants wearers, and they're not my best look. So I really struggle as to whether or not I should, be part of the group or be a maverick and wear jeans, anything other than yoga pants.
Do they do yoga?
Yeah.
Or do they just wear yoga pants?
Nobody does yoga. It's like people are out there smoking in their activewear.
Yeah, we
They
are.
don't care. We are. I mean, I'm going to go get some donuts in my yoga pants. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not
Just
enough
crazy.
for yoga pants, that's for sure.
no. Well, I'm too much for yoga pants.
What is it about yoga pants specifically where you say,
I'm not enough.
Not enough.
don't pull it off quite?
There's just nowhere to hide. Yeah, and they're tough to pull off.
Yeah. No
Nowhere
place
to
put
hide.
Your, put your
Nowhere
keys.
to hide. That's exactly right. Oh,
And when
Casey.
we're exposed,
She has her
Good.
psychology hat on. Nowhere to hide.
Ooh, that is.
because that is when it
It
comes
is,
out.
right.
When you feel exposed, when you feel vulnerable, when
Yeah.
on your worst day, when all of the stuff comes out,
Yeah.
that never
Yeah.
comes out on social media,
Right.
certainly.
Right.
Nobody
Never
takes a
co-
picture
hey,
of that.
it
Of
doesn't
the
come
roll
out.
on top of the yoga
Nope.
pants.
So wait, listen, last night I was changing for one of the characters in the thing. And I was talking to Rebecca, who's been fabulous makeup. So I was saying to Rebecca, is everybody out? And she said yes. And I started to change, and I turned around, and there's a big plate glass window right behind me that the whole city is right there.
Everybody's
So
out, but
nobody
here's the
was
city.
in the room, but here's the city. Yeah, so go ahead and change in the privacy of this
You should
room.
have said, quick survey, am I enough? What do you think? about
No,
what you
I
just
wouldn't
saw?
wait for the answer. We come back and go, not you, fathead. Yeah.
Why do we treat each other like that as women?
Just 'cause we're
As
weird.
women, we treat each other like we're not enough.
Well, I think we can't talk about that, I don't think, without at least talking about men a little bit. Because don't you think there's a little bit of pressure? I mean, I think probably one of the worst things to happen to my friendships in high school and college were men.
Miss men.
Yeah.
Slash boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think something happens with women where they feel competitive
expectation.
or something comes up and it changes the dynamic. And we don't know how to stay close in the midst of that. So we sort of retreat into being enough for someone else as opposed to trusting. But
And that's tough because that's a changing standard.
yeah, it
Because
is.
what this
yeah,
person
it's a
likes
moving
is
target.
not. Oh
right.
my gosh.
Right. And
It's
that's
impossible.
a trap.
It's impossible.
We need someone to say, hey, you're so fully enough,
Yes.
right where you are, right as you are,
Yeah.
without changing anything.
Yeah.
Amen.
Okay, so let me ask you this. My husband would say he says that to me, and I don't believe it.
That's true.
It is kind of true, isn't it?
Why?
Because it's easy to toss off the good thing.
Right.
Oh,
We
your
have
hair
a
is
hard
great.
time.
That's dirty.
Yeah. Or if he says, I love you just the way you are, I think, yeah, well, you have to because you're married to me. So part of it is ourselves,
Yeah,
I think.
why don't you believe that? What is
Right.
it in
I
us
don't
that
know.
says you don't believe?
I'm thinking about it. If you come up with an answer, tell me because
That's right.
I need it.
We're waiting on your wisdom.
I'm Casey Van Norman, and I am with my dear friends, Nicole Johnson and Jada Edwards, and we have loved working on this project for you. We have learned that regardless of whether we are women in the 21st century or women on the pages of the Bible thousands of years ago, we all need each other. We all hurt from the same place, and we all want the same thing, to be enough. So, welcome to the story of Naomi.
A number of years ago, my life was unraveling. My marriage of 11 years was ending, and nothing was working. Truthfully, my marriage had ended just a couple of years after it began. But it wasn't until last June that it was official and we signed the papers. I spent a couple of weeks packing up everything, saying goodbye to friends, and then I made the trek across the country to here to start teaching art. I rented a little house around the corner, about 4 blocks from here. The truck finally made the delivery, and my friend Anne came over to help. And it was a beautiful day. I remember she brought coffee and muffins, and the sun was shining. And then we opened the first box. It was my dishes. And every one of them was broken. Every one. Dish after dish. Anne opened the second box, and as she unwrapped, it was all my little figurines and tchotchke stuff. Art, some of it my own art. My pottery wheel. Broken. Everything was broken, box after box. By the 4th box, I was devastated. I thought, why is this happening? I mean, did something get a hold of my stuff? Or did the truck have an accident and they forgot to tell us? It was all gone. It was all gone. By the 10th box, I didn't want to open anymore. It felt like it was somehow this physical representation of what was going on inside of me. Everything was shattered. Was God punishing me for ending my marriage? I didn't want to say that one out loud. But God knew. He knew how hard it was. He knew it was the most difficult decision of my life. The last box was the toughest because it held this beautiful piece of stained glass that my grandmother had given me. She bought 3 pieces at an auction, and she had given 1 to each of my sisters. And in the last box I opened, there it was, in pieces at the bottom. Box after box Anne took out to the trash. And I sat thinking, I wish I could fit in one of those boxes. I wish I could get in and just get thrown away.
In middle school, I had a really good friend of mine. She was an only child, and they had a great family. Mom and dad loved her, spoiled her a little bit. You know, only children out there. You know what I'm talking about. Well, about a year or so after we became friends, her dad and mom got divorced. I mean, her mom left the house. It was kind of weird because usually dad leaves, but she was at home with a single dad, and life was different, but it was good. We're going through middle school, dealing with all the strange things that adolescents deal with, and her dad starts dating again. He gets remarried. Still not a major adjustment. She's got stepmom at home, and they get along pretty well. A couple of kids come along. Now she's got 2 stepbrothers. Life seems to be kind of evening out, but we started high school, and her dad got really sick, and her dad died, and that just turned everything upside down. So now she's in the home with her stepmom and her 2 stepbrothers, and she's trying to be a good soldier, but it's hard. And then it gets a little weird because after a few years, her stepmom decides to remarry, which is perfectly within her right to do. But now my friend is at home with her stepmother, her 2 stepbrothers, and her stepmother's husband. Yeah, talk about uprooted. She's looking around at this family, and even though you don't need blood relatives to make a family, I mean, my children are adopted, and I thank God for them every day, it still can feel like your life's been turned upside down when that kind of trauma happens. So there's no dad in the picture, no mom. And my friend, she just kind of felt untethered, just floating through life, not really grounded by anything. And when I think about her story, it reminds me a lot of Naomi, because when we meet Naomi, In the book of Ruth, in chapter 1, we find a woman who has been uprooted. Her life has changed dramatically. She has gone from wife to widow because her husband has died. She identified as a mother, and now she's primarily a mother-in-law because her sons have died, and now she's got her 2 daughters-in-law to care for. She's gone through some major life change, and so she finds herself feeling a little untethered too. That can happen when it seems like everything that has grounded you is suddenly gone. It can make your head and your heart spin. Not only was Naomi in an emotional place that makes your head and heart spin, she wasn't even in the best physical place. I mean, she was in Moab. That's not the place you go for spiritual retreat. It's not where you go to renew your identity. Let me tell you a little bit about Moab. It came out of an incestuous relationship, right? Incest, I know, in the Bible. Look, nothing is new under the sun. If you look at Genesis 19, you will meet a man named Lot. He had sex with his daughters. The oldest daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. So you can imagine that all of the Moabites, everyone that came from Moab, would be a highly sexualized, a highly pagan, anti-God culture. So in the midst of all of this emotional upheaval, Naomi is not even in a place where she can find any type of physical reassurance because she's in an unfamiliar anti-God culture. It can be difficult, but I think that Naomi's pain, even though God didn't create it, he allowed it, because this trauma was the catalyst that sent her back home. Sometimes God will allow pain in your life to push you out of a place you shouldn't have been to begin with. Sometimes he will allow hard things to come because they're the catalyst that make us do the thing he's been asking us to do. The job he wants you to quit, when you wait too long, you find yourself fired or laid off. The thing he wants you to leave, you wait too long, he will push you out. So even in the hard times, God is moving us home. He wants to bring us back to the place where he is. So Naomi finds herself in the midst of a very painful situation. But here's what I love about this story. Naomi's pain doesn't alter how she represents God. She is still faithful to the God that is sovereign in her life. How do I know that? Well, her daughter-in-law made a life-changing decision just because of who Naomi was. We see all of the evidence in Ruth chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. Let's take a look. She says, "For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you." What a powerful declaration that Ruth makes. Those are 5 really personal statements. She's saying, I want to go where you go, Naomi, your people, live where you live, know your God. Nothing but death will separate me from you. That's how committed she is. And honestly, Naomi can't make any sense of it. If you look earlier in chapter 1, around verses 8, 10, 11, Naomi is saying, why would you want to follow me? I can't have any more children. Naomi didn't think very highly of herself right now. And you know, that can happen, right? When life feels a little uprooted, it can affect how we think about ourselves. And so Ruth said, listen, I don't care about all those physical, tangible things. I see this intangible character because of this God you say you follow, and I want some of that. So Ruth is drawn to something much deeper in Naomi than just her external circumstances. Ruth is willing to change her culture, her religion, her geography. She's going to have to learn a whole new way of living just because of Naomi's character. I just wonder if my life, when I'm going through the hard times, when I'm in that low place, does someone still look at me and say, I want to know your God? Jada, this thing that should have driven you crazy, somehow you still have peace and you still have contentment. Who is this God you serve? Ladies, I wonder if your life is like that. How do you reflect God when you're going through hard times? Because in the midst of chaos, he is our only constant. When you feel uprooted, when you feel untethered, God is your anchor. If you're going through the midst of a divorce, if your kids have just left home to go to college, maybe you have a new diagnosis that's changed everything, your financial situation has suddenly been turned upside down, only in those moments can you see how God can anchor you. Not only will he give you a source of strength, he will allow your life to change the lives of others. Listen, people are watching. We don't need to live for God just to impress people. But when we do, It impacts them and invites them to know the God that we claim to know. We can learn some things from Naomi.
Not long after my 30th birthday, I got a phone call that would forever change the entire course of my life. It was the phone call that I had end-stage cancer and I had 5 years to live. I think it's safe to say that this was the most painful and traumatic and devastating season of my entire life. So I relate to Naomi when she says, "Hey, I'm totally empty. God, I feel like your hand is absolutely against me, and I'm kind of angry about the whole thing." Let's read about it. Ruth, chapter 1, starting in verse 19. "And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the woman said, 'Is this Naomi?' She said to them, 'Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara. For the Almighty has dealt so bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. So why call me Naomi? When the Lord has tested against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me.'" Naomi was so scared and mad and bitter that she wanted to change her entire name, which in this day was a big deal because your name was your identity. Your name defined you. And she no longer wanted to be called Naomi, which meant pleasant. She was now Mara, which means bitter. Let me read for you the definition of the word bitter. Let's just see if you can relate at all. Bitter means angry, discontent, in misery. Listen to this one. A heaviness that you just can't seem to lift. Can you relate to Naomi? I bet you can. Of course she was bitter. Of course she was mad at God. Of course she had questions. The last 10 years of her life had been a living hell. She had lost her husband. She had lost both of her children, and now she was living as a foreigner, a woman who was marginalized, oppressed, not even a second-class citizen. You and I, like Naomi, are going to go through some extremely painful seasons of life. We are going to feel just like this, like the Lord's hand is against us and we don't know why. Like we're going to feel every feeling at once. A counselor calls this a trauma. The emotions are so big that our brain disconnects what's rational. It doesn't know how to readjust quickly. Picture it like this. You have an encounter, an experience happens, and your brain is flipping through all of these old files, hundreds of old files, to try to find the one receipt that says, "I did this before, I paid this before," and it can't find it. That's what it feels like to have a trauma, where the experience is so great and so big and such a moment of crisis that it crumbles everything you think you know about God, about other people, about yourself. And this is exactly the point. The day I got the news that I had cancer, my brain ran every emotion there is. I was completely disconnected from everything that I knew was real and rational. I had every question for God. I was so angry in one moment and so broken the next. Like Naomi tells her daughters-in-law when they want to follow her, "Get away from me. Don't come after me because I am not good for you right now." I said these exact words to my family because I would be so extreme in the midst of this crisis and this pain. In one moment, I would be weeping in a corner, depressed and asking someone to hold me and hug me and pray with me. The next moment, I would become this terror, violent, snapping everybody. I even broke a mirror. For the first time in my life, this had nothing to do with any other relationship. I couldn't cast blame. I couldn't justify because of somebody else's behavior. This pain, this hurt, was between me and God. I had to look at my own mortality. And God had to be exactly who He said that He was, or I was a dead woman. This was traumatizing for me. You don't need to receive the phone call that you have cancer to experience a trauma and to know that you are in the middle of a crisis. You and I experience life and death all day long, 100 times a day in big and small ways. From that disappointment, working to quit that addiction, staying in that hard marriage, staying with that exhausting friend, continuing to pray for that child for years who just cannot seem to make a good choice. Through the life of Naomi, God is showing us two truths that we must cling to in life and death moments. All of our heartbreak, all of our pain, big and small. Number one, let yourself lament. To lament is just to say it out loud. Say what you feel, all the hard, brutal, scary feelings. Let it out. Cry about it. Tell somebody else about it. Get mad about it. You're not going to lose your faith just because you get mad about it. Did you know there is an entire book of the Bible devoted to someone lamenting their emotions? Matthew 26:38 tells us this, that the Lord himself felt exceedingly sorrowful, and that because of that sorrow, he is our great high priest who intercedes on our behalf in times of great despair. Hebrews 4:15. 1 Peter 5:7 tells us that there are going to be times in our life that the weight of our own pain is going to be so heavy, we will actually need help carrying it. And that the Lord is close to who? The crushed, the brokenhearted. Psalm 34:18. God's word gives us permission to go through pain, to hurt, to be angry about it, and to say just how angry we are, to change our name if we need to. God wants us to cry out because he knows that as we say it, as we speak it, as we share our pain with someone else, as we lament, that we are connecting what is happening to the feeling of what is happening. He is making us whole again. So I encourage you, if you are in a deep season of pain and you feel like the Lord's hand is against you, lament it. Let yourself lament. Number two, heal at home. Now, the Lord gives us great self-preservation techniques. In fact, in some of our greatest pain, he will let us surround ourselves with that which is most comfortable. Naomi wanted to go home, not just because it was familiar, but because that is where she met God. It's where she could hear from him. It's where she could see him, sense his presence. Think about it. We don't even see Naomi say that she is bitter, her most honest feeling, until she gets home with her girlfriends. I mean, can't you just see it? The women come out, they see Naomi, and she just crumbles because they're her people. I don't know about you, but I've got girlfriends and I've got girlfriends. I've got girlfriends on the periphery who I love, have a good time with. But then I've got girlfriends that just to see their face crater me. I can be my most honest self with them. I can say the most stupid things. They even let me change my name from time to time because they are not going to reject me no matter what I say. And can't you just see Naomi walking up the streets to her hometown, and here come her girl friends, and finally she says what she really feels. I am bitter. Don't even talk to me. Let me tell you about who I am and what I have been through. And I can just picture them going, tell me, we need some good gossip since you've been gone. This home for Naomi is such a great visual picture for us as believers of what it should feel like to coexist in the local church. Now, the local church is one dysfunctional family, but it is our family. It is our home base. Sisters, we've got to go home to heal. If you are in pain, if you are going through a dark season, you've got to get to church. You have got to surround yourself with like-minded people who are going to point you to God and not away from him. In Moab, everybody was worshiping things that could never give them comfort, never give them joy or peace. Moabites were worshiping sex and money and platform and food. Sound familiar? If you find yourself in an especially dark season, go home to heal. Let yourself lament with the people who can pray for you, cry with you, laugh with you, make a meal for you, pray for you. the people who know your real name. In the life of Naomi, we learn that pain does not get the last word. In fact, you will find that pain is God's way of preparing us for our purpose and revealing His promise.